name any aspect of our culture and economy, it's being watched, it's being suppressed, and it's being touched upon and weaponized.
Thank you again, everybody, for joining us for this panel on the parallel economy. We've got some amazing guests with us today, people that have become dear friends and some that we're looking forward to spending a lot more time with and using each other's services. So I've got Heather, Chuck, and Andrew on my screen. So I'd like to go ahead and go in that order. And could you tell us a little bit about yourselves and the companies that you work with?
Sure. My name is Heather Wilson. I am a co-founder of the platform Give, Send, Go. We are the replacement to other crowdfunding sites that we have seen become very entangled in the censorship game that's running rampant across the internet. We have stepped up and decided that we're going to allow freedom on Give, Send, Go, even for people we might disagree with. It's unfortunately a novel idea in today's day and age, but that is what we stand for, all the while wanting to share hope with people while they're fundraising.
Awesome. Chuck?
Clayton, thanks for having me on. Appreciate the time. We're building freedomsquare.com. I'm one of the partners and one of the original founders of freedomsquare.com, and we want to be the patriotic portal to the parallel economy. We want to be the high tide that rises the ships. So be it Give, Send, Go, which they are a great business network client of ours. Clayton, you're inside of our business network. We're building the business network because Clayton has to get to know who Heather is. Heather needs to get to know who Andrew is and start spending our money with these companies that believe in what we believe in. So we're trying to become that patriotic portal, that buffer from the wokeness and the cancel culture it's just become a cancer throughout the United States and throughout the world. And Freedom Square is also a news aggregation site, a podcast site, resource library as well. But the big thing is connecting patriots and like-minded people together that appreciate the freedom that we have, that God has given us here in America. And thanks for having me on. It's freedomsquare.com, and we're going to become the place to be here in the very near future.
Awesome. All right, Andrew.
Clayton, thank you for having me. My name is Andrew Ridaw. I formerly was with the Trump White House before Joe Biden fired me. And then, after that, started Liberation Technology Services. We are a next generation cloud provider. So if you think of GoDaddy all the way up to AWS, we provide that cloud service along with other platform-based tools that companies need every single day to operate in this new digital world. And as a cloud provider, we look at ourselves as a utility. So as long as you're not breaking the law, it doesn't matter to us what you're doing, what you're selling, and how you're communicating. We believe that everyone has the right and liberty to be online, and we're here to protect that with some of our next generation cybersecurity technologies that ensure clients can't be canceled.
Yeah, and I do want to highlight a little bit here. May as well do it at the front, Andrew. I was shocked with the broad array of what you guys provide. We had talked in the last 2 years with Crosscurrent. We have tried to find companies that will insulate us from big tech, so that we're not dependent upon big tech. But there were a bunch of industries, at least 6 different industries, where we identified that we didn't have a good options for Christians and conservatives. And so I met you guys at CPAC and just a few weeks ago now, and was just amazed at the broad suite of services. I believe you said everything from what you already mentioned, but email service, both internal and CRM, as well as a Dropbox-like feature and a Slack feature. Could you just go into a little bit of those?
So like you were saying, we kind of have a full suite of cloud services, everything from a shared hosting, so your basic website, all the way up to major enterprise services. We also offer Hub for Teams, which is our answer to how do I get off of Gmail? How do I get off of Zoom? How do I get off of Dropbox and all of these other players that are constantly censoring or exposing our data. And so we built the hub as a unified platform for users that they're able to operate their business and have a lot of those tools in a unified platform that is highly secured, PCI, PHI, and PII compliant. We recently launched Liberation Campaign, which is our alternative to a MailChimp Constant Contact. We are in final development of a no-code site builder, so something that you would find similarly to GoDaddy, Squarespace, or Wix. And we are also in final beta of a Google Analytics kind of replacement. So, we really try to focus on those core infrastructure tools that individuals use. And, we're constantly listening to the market. What do they need as far as infrastructure services? And, that's what we've rolled out so far through a very talented team of developers.
That is mind-blowing. The scope of what you've been able to put together in just a short period of time. I've heard great things about you guys since I heard about you first at CPAC, so a month and a half ago. But every corner I keep hearing about you guys, which is awesome. And then a lot of users probably have heard or watch, people that will see this probably have heard of Give Send Go. If they didn't know about it before, they got a lot of press, positive and negative, from the when the Canadian truckers were locked out of GoFundMe. They went over to Give Send Go, which was awesome to see. And so Heather's doing amazing things there. And again, Chuck is with Freedom Square is doing some really great stuff. So let's jump into some of the other questions here. So what is the biggest danger that you guys see for Christians and conservatives, freedom-minded people in our economy?
I'll take this one, I guess, to just jumpstart it. I was thinking about this, and I really think the biggest danger is ourselves, that we get so complacent and comfortable that we don't want to. We might know a company doesn't align with what we align with, that they might be standing against actually some really important truths to us. And yet, because we're just complacent or comfortable, we stay there despite all the red flags. And we don't actually, a lot of times Christians or conservatives don't do something until they're put into a place where they're forced to. They get debanked, they get taken off Facebook, they go in Facebook jail or Twitter or all the different platforms, and we remain complacent. And so our danger is ourselves saying, I'm just going to go with the flow, and this isn't ever going to touch me. And that's not the truth. We see the writing on the wall. It's just going to get worse. Christians and conservatives, we are losing our voices, and we're allowing it to happen. And that's only because up until this point, we've just gone along with comfort. And so I think that's one of the biggest dangers that we are seeing today, but people are starting to wake up, and that's an exciting thing to see as well.
Yeah.
I agree 100% with you, Heather. 100%. That's why we've built the Freedom Square Business Network, so people can start to figure out who they need and who they should be spending their dollars with. I've said it forever. We live in a Disney bubble. We get comfortably numb. I thought COVID might have woken a lot of people up, but unfortunately, I think a lot of people have gotten rocked back to sleep. But they have to start getting uncomfortable where they spend their dollars. It may be an extra 10 minutes across town to go spend money with the florist that believes in what you believe in, but you have to start doing it. I think a certain beer manufacturer has found out what happens when you do something that is totally out of the norm. Just ask any bar owner how many cases of a certain product they have sitting in their refrigerator from 5 days ago, which normally would be restocking right now. So we have powerful numbers. There's more of us than there are of them. It's a matter of uniting and coming together and doing exactly what you said, Heather. Do it. Get uncomfortable. Then it becomes comfortable. Then you know where your dollars are going. So that's why I applaud everybody on this call on what you're doing.
Yeah. Andrew, do you have another?
And I think, you look back at history time and time again, especially in the technology space. You look at some of the worst leaders that this world has ever seen, Mussolini, Mao, Stalin, and all of those, some of the things that they do first and foremost is they control the ideology, they suppress the alternatives, And ultimately, they make everyone believe that there's only one way, there's only one thought, and there's only one path. I believe that what we're doing here is, true and ideological capitalism more than anything else. We are saying that you don't have to necessarily just stay with one group just because they're the only ones in the market. We are opening it up to say there are, companies that are based on ideological morals and foundations. And if you believe those things, you need to do business with them. And so, I believe that this parallel economy is really saving, capitalism, the ideology that our founding fathers originally placed.
Yep, that's great. I agree. So Andrew, I think you have a little more unique, and maybe Chuck as well, but comprehensive perspective on this. Next question. So what industries have you seen concerning trends of cancellation or moving toward cancellation and deplatforming?
Yeah, so I think in 2020 and 2021, it was painfully obvious that technology was the new forefront that the left was going to use to suppress ideology and half of this nation. Whether it's deplatforming of a sitting president or alternative platforms that were allowing individuals to voice their opinions. There were tens of thousands of examples, but that hasn't stopped today. We saw a cloud file storage company just a couple of months ago start to censor documents that users were storing on the platform. And they said, we don't agree with the ideology that is represented in this. We're seizing it from you. We saw, last year, the RNC have a over 60% suppression rate on their email deliverability to their consumers. And to their followers. I think that technology and even what has been released out of the Twitter files, I think that it is evident that, they're trying to control the message, the narrative, what we see, and really, for the average consumer, what they want us to think is constantly being pushed on us. And I think that is something that is very dangerous. We help customers every single day get off of those big Silicon Valley companies and move to a platform that is stable, that doesn't care how they operate their business or the views that they have. And for us, we believe that if there isn't a space to have these alternative conversations, it's very dangerous. And it really erodes a lot of the foundational principles and really the beacon on the hill that the United States stands for. And so, technology, I don't see it changing. I believe that it is going to be something that, we're going to have to really make a decision here. As Americans, do we want to continue to support the companies that then take our dollars and proactively put them to work against us, or are we going to move to alternative technology companies? Because even in the wake of Twitter files and everything that Elon Musk has revealed, I'm sure that other Silicon Valley companies are just as bad, if not worse. So, the fight is going to continue on. And I think 2024, honestly, for Christians and conservatives, it is going to be a bloodbath. We saw what happened in 2020. We saw it come out a little bit more in 2022. And now I think that they're going to stop at nothing to prevent Republicans from taking back the White House.
Chuck, do you have some
yes,
further?
Yeah, I echo everything Andrew said, and I applaud what Heather and Give, Send, Go have done and what you're trying to accomplish, Clayton, with Cross Current, because it's all needed. Everything that we touch now is weaponized, from our messaging to our media to our political world. If you don't have a hill to die on, this is the hill you're going to need, because this is the only hill left. There's no other place to go in the world that gives you what America has. So I just wish people would wake up to see what's really happening around them from the banking system. Wait until the Fed starts to roll out their digital currency the middle part of this summer, and then see how they really treat you as they're tracking where you're making your purchases. Not that they already aren't through credit card companies, but between banking, credit card companies, media, tech, name any aspect of our culture and economy, it's being watched, it's being suppressed, and it's being touched upon and weaponized. And that's why we're building what we're building. That's why Andrew's built what he's built, what you're building, Clayton, and what Heather, you guys have built. and we have to unite and connect because that's the only way. Strength in numbers. When they conquer and they divide, that's a bad thing for all of us. So that's why we're building Freedom Square, and it's time. It's overdue. We've sat on the sidelines way too long, and we have to get active and really and truly do what we need to do to connect and survive. Is what it comes down to, is survival.
Yeah. So as far as industries, Andrew touched on a few, basically everything to do with tech and business, whether it's the email, as I know that, and I have looked at Gab as a bellwether for a long time, being canceled from everything. Andrew, you mentioned banking, and Heather, I know that Nick Vujicic and what he has gone through. I was hoping to have him here today. He wasn't able to make it, but what he's trying to do with Pro-Life Bank, and to get that off the ground, because pro-life views, he was debanked because he was one of the most outspoken and popular voices for the pro-life movement. So are there other, obviously we know there's a very big coffee company that is one. Are there other industries that stand out where we've seen that cancellation?
For Give, Send, Go, we are in the crowdfunding, so the fundraising, the money movement of money, which we know that whoever can move money actually has some of the power. And that's what happened with the Canadian truckers, right? When the government couldn't control who was moving the money, you saw a bunch of scrambling and all this Emergency Act and all this trying to grab some control back. And so it makes the government very afraid when, instead of just having a few $1 million donors, having a grassroots of $10 donors, all coming together. There's some power in those numbers and in the money, and we're watching that. We've seen it firsthand. So back in 2014, when we started Give, Send, Go, this wasn't even something we thought. This wasn't. We started a platform to share hope with people while they fundraise, right? Like just an alternative. Because we knew that money doesn't solve anything. That there's hope that goes along. We hit our first campaign that thrust us into the national spotlight was Kyle Rittenhouse, where Facebook, GoFundMe, PayPal, pretty much everybody said he's not allowed to tell his side of the story. He's already guilty. That's a very, very dangerous place to be in, even more than just industries that are culture is coming to a place to say, we are going to judge you and not care about the law of the land, the justice system that's put in place. To me, that's one of the most concerning things, is that we're so quick to we're being called, the ADL just put a hit piece out on Give, Send, Go, saying that we are allowing terrorists and white supremacists and extremists to raise over $6 million. And I call them back out and say, you first, let me know what campaigns those are, because you're not going to be able to tell me any campaigns like that on Give, Send, Go. Now, the ones you're referring to are for legal fees. To call legal fees, raising money for legal fees, extremist in the United States, that's saying that you only believe rich people should be allowed to afford an attorney. And that's absolutely insane. That makes no sense. And so we saw Discover Card actually put out a memo saying that during Kyle, that if you had a Discover Card, you couldn't give to his campaign. They would try to block it. That is insane to see things like that. We had PayPal have discussions with us about how we weren't going to be allowed to use them if we continued things like this. We, even today, Google Ads, we're on the phone with Google Ads all the time, because they keep any ad we put out, they label it as gambling, and then we get shut down by accident, over and over again, gambling by accident. We're seeing this happen again and again. And I think that it's not just, the scary part is not just companies, because I feel like when a company steps up, right, it is capitalism. And that's the beauty of America. We can make more businesses to combat the businesses. But it's when the government gets involved and starts shutting things down and taking a side, that to me is the most concerning trend. And we're watching it take place where past presidents are being seized their stuff and just mind-blowing things. And that is really concerning for all of us in this space, at least in my perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Clayton, what I would add is you would almost have an easier time finding an industry that's not political now
right.
than calling out those that are. I mean, it everything from electric to food and beverage. I mean, everyone seems to have take a political opinion, whether their services are in the political sphere or not. Apparently, that's just the new world that we have to live in.
Right. And celebrating it all the time and not just on one day a year. They have a full month, and then you're also forced to um, promote their message at any point. And with the digital currency, the centralized digital currency, a couple of you touched on that, Heather and Chuck. That's for me is terrifying. But so is this trend, and let's start with that specifically. Is this something that we can halt? And if so, should we? And how do we do that?
I think we must, right? Because what we've seen over the course of, the last 25, 50 years or so, the left continues to inch further and further left, trying to drag this country more to a socialistic, resemblance, more towards Venezuela than, the democracy that we have here. And I think that it's actually pretty easy to put a halt to it, right? There's, anywhere from 85 to 100 million Americans. And there are now alternative economy companies in probably every single sector. If you were to take 85 million Americans and get them all to agree to stop spending their money with these companies, that will really create billions of dollars in lost revenues for these companies. And that is something that they aren't going to be able to ignore anymore. And at the end of the day, they will either A, change their ideology, or B, they will go out of business. That is capitalism right there. And so really it is, getting everyone online and subscribe to the idea that you don't just vote every other November, right? For your general or primary elections, you have to vote every single day with your wallet. And that is a critical piece.
I also have an interesting take on this. I believe that God is, it's like for such a time as this, right? Like the Esther story in the Bible, like we were, each one of our platforms, God has put in our hands to do something with, and it's really important. And I 100%, we're all believe that we're all in a battle here. But as far as the halting of it, I think that we know what's going to happen. The Bible, if you believe the Bible, it explains like that we're going to be heading to a one world government and a lot of things that are not going to get better, right? Like in the end. Now, not to say we don't continue to stand and step out against and step up for truth. I guess that's what we all, each one of our platforms, that is what, when I've talked to each one of you in the past, that's what I hear. It's like, no, I want truth to prevail. I want people to have something solid to stand on. And that's why we do what we do, to share truth, to allow people to have a voice, to offer freedom to people. I love Freedom Square. Like this is the basis of what we do, right? We want to offer people freedom, both spiritually and physically. And unfortunately, I don't think it's going to halt, because I think that God has a plan and he's bringing it to a fruition. But I think that each one of us are part of that plan and pushing, and this might not be the answer you like and wanted. But in my opinion, that is really, it's like we continue this fight because God has put us in the battle. But I do believe that God is in control of this. And so that takes away a little bit of that worry. I just am going to continue doing what he's put in front of me. And I don't know if that answered that how anybody wanted me to, but that's my 2 cents about it.
I can't disagree. We talk about this all the time at Freedom Square, the people we've met, the connections we've made, the people that just kind of show up when we're looking for that certain thing that we're needed. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. God is in control. Can you halt it? No. But you can darn well fight it. And that's what we have to continue to do. We cannot continue to be pushed to the sidelines anymore. We can't be silent anymore. We have to do what we have to do to save the culture, the economy, the American way of life, and more importantly, freedom. Without freedom, there's nothing. And certain people in this country, and there's a lot of them, are trying to stifle that. Your voice, be it where you're spending your money, to where it's all about control. Once you control, and then it's game over. We can't allow that to happen. That's why I applaud everybody one more time on this call. Andrew, you're building that back end so people have that portal to get through. That's why we're building Freedom Square, Give, Send, Go, Cross Current. I mean, those are all important in this battle because we cannot give in, we cannot give up, and we have to continue to fight. But we have to unite. There's a great thing if you got, as our founder Tom talks about, you've got a 4 million acre ranch and there's millions of Mustangs out on that ranch, all running around doing their thing. That's great because they're Mustangs, they're free. But you got to kind of rope the Mustangs in and say, guys, look over here. This is where we need to be headed. We need to start working together. It's okay for news media outlets to see each other on the same site. It's okay for podcasters to cross promote podcasters. We need to start doing that instead of being so siloed. And I think that's incredibly important in this fight, in this battle, is you can't do it on your own. God's with you, but you got to unite under the umbrella of freedom in America.
So I think we've already heard the answer to this question, but how comprehensive should the parallel economy be? Every industry, most industries. I mean, you mentioned a florist, Chuck. Is this something
Everything
that every single small business owner needs to say, look, we are a freedom-loving company. We believe in conservative, traditional, biblical values.
Yes, all of it, because that's how you pinch it. That's how you make them uncomfortable. That's how they start to feel the pain. You've got to start spending your money. Anytime you put a dollar bill out or swipe a credit card, you have to think, where's that going towards? What's the end game of that money I just gave to the tire store or the florist or the landscaper or the roofer? Any of that. It all trickles up and trickles down, but where's it going? And does it align with your values? Does it align with what you believe in? Does it align with freedom? Does it align with your right to voice your concern? Or is it squelching it? Is it trying to suffocate it? That's really the choices you have to make. Is this doing what I would want it to do, or is it not doing what I want it to do? That's really what it boils down to. Is it suffocating my voice, or is it giving my voice a place to call home and do good? It's basically good versus evil is really what it comes down to with this. Where's your money being spent? What's it going towards, and who's it affecting and benefiting?
Yeah, and what I would add on to that is a lot of these companies already exist. It's drive past Walmart into town and find those small businesses. Use Freedom Square to look it up. Stay on top of what Give, Send, Go is raising money for, and find and support those. Right? It's kind of going back to the roots of shop local, shop small business. They might not always be as large as some of these corporate titans, but if we all get behind them, they can pretty easily start moving in that direction and giving them, the bigger players, a real run for their money.
And I just, when I think of the word parallel economy, and Jacob and I have talked about this often, is
Jacob
we
being
actually
your
don't.
Co-founder.
Jacob's my brother and my co-founder. That we don't actually just want to be parallel, doing the same route. I don't want to be the same as my alternative over there. I want to say everybody can use us. I don't want to say we're only for this part, because I think it's a horrible business model for them to be doing, to shutting down campaigns left and right. I don't want to do that same thing. I do not want to be parallel. Parallel lines never meet. Oh, I want to meet them and exceed them and take, I want their line to go down while my line's going up. I do not want to stay parallel with them. We used to say we're the alternative, right, to the other sites that are out there. Now we say we're the replacement. Because that's what happens, is that there is a day where each person in society is going to need a place, and maybe society will say, well, what you're raising funds for or what you want to talk about doesn't matter. And they're going to need a place like Freedom Square. They're going to need a place like Liberation, like Cross Current, like Give, Send, Go, to stand up and say, no, come on over. We're going to give you the freedom to do what is important to you when the rest of the world might devalue you. And so I don't want to stay parallel to the others. We are all, if we continue the path we're going, the graph is not going to be parallel. It's going to be like one going down and one shooting straight up, because you can't run a business removing half your client base and expect to stay in business. And what we need to do, and this is really important, and we keep talking about it because I think it's important, is supporting each other, even when we're not the best yet. And that's the hardest thing. 8 years ago, when we started Give, Send, Go, we were way near as good as our competitors. Like, we just didn't have all the things. Because people chose to use us despite that, we are now able to have better technology and better things in place and better features than our competitor. And that's the same with everybody on this call, is that, but it takes us, because it takes money to build these platforms. It takes people that dedicate their lives to saying, I'm going to put my life into this because it's so important, but it also takes money. And if people go, well, Liberation, you're not as good as AWS right now. I get all these other things over here, or Amazon. Like, I like to shop at Amazon because it comes next day. If we don't choose to put our money in helping companies like ours rise, and we keep saying it again and again, but that really is the bottom line. Don't be complacent. Put your money where it aligns with you, and you will see sites like ours. It won't be a competition. We will be the replacements, not the alternatives. It just will happen.
I'm going to throw in, and hopefully people will forgive me, but with CrossCurrent, it's been 2 years now that we've been working on this. And by we, it's basically my wife and I that have footed the bill toward this point, and we are just about ready to spin up. And but it has been hard because we're trying to have something that has enough books to be sustainable, to have a critical mass of content, but the tech behind it that Amazon spent 20 years building in Audible and Kindle. And so yes, we don't have all of the features that we want to, that we expect to. So I appreciate you saying that, Heather, that, back at the beginning, we didn't have all of that, but we need to support all of those companies that are at the beginning so that they can continue and again become that replacement. Another question: do we still need healthy competition in the parallel economy? It kind of dovetails with that because maybe there's I don't know of anyone that is doing what we are doing, but so I don't have a direct correlation in that, but say there's 2 or 3 different companies that are trying to do some of the same thing. Is it better to have that competition in the parallel economy itself, or should we get behind the Liberation has this many this amazing suite of software and services? Should we all get behind them to the disadvantage of some of the others that are trying to do this as well? What are your thoughts?
I think that goes against what Heather just said. You've got to support, but I'm sorry to interrupt you, Andrew, but I'll be real brief. I think it's capitalism at its root. That's what makes America, America, and the freedom that you have to choose. And the cream is always going to rise to the top. And when you put a business against a business against a business, the consumer is going to decide. So I think capitalism and competition is always a great thing. That's why you saw so much come out of America back in its day when America was great, with industry. And that's what sparks things. That's what keeps the machine moving. You try to squelch that, down it, just go one way, it's going to become stale and stagnant. So I am a big believer that the consumer capitalism will always be the best way forward with anything that we do in the business world.
And what I'll add is, there are other conservative cloud providers out there, and it's been very unique because there are some, especially early on, that said, you're our competition, we want nothing to do with you. And you really don't see those companies still making much noise today. However, there are other companies, other cloud providers that we are partnering with, putting together strategic alliances, because at the end of the day, the market is so large and we are up against an industry titan that we've never seen before, that by working together, we can make each other better. And then ultimately, it creates a rising tides type scenario where we are raising each other up. We are supporting our brothers in arms. This is something where it won't necessarily just be a one type solution, but Silicon Valley, they work together a lot more often than you think. So why should we not do the same and lock arms with our quote unquote competitors to make ourselves better?
That's great. I love it. And Chuck, that rising tide again, what you're talking about, what you guys are building in Freedom Square.
100%.
Yep.
100%. Be the high tide that rises. I'm not afraid to talk about what Public Square is doing. I think they did a great job. They're getting ready to go public. Kudos to them. We'd love to work with them, and we have worked with them on some certain levels. We have some conversations, but I have no problem with putting a link to Truth Social or any of those on our site. I think it builds. You can't. You can't go in a cocoon. If that's the best way to say, you can't go cocoon yourself or silo yourself. You've got to do business with each other, people that you believe in, and be that high tide, as Andrew said and I've said. I mean, it's the truth. You cannot silo yourself, or you'll end up out of business.
Yeah. So I'm also hearing that it sounds like that you believe there is a large enough market for Christians and conservatives to sustain not only each an alternative or Heather replacement in each industry, but also to have a thriving competition isn't the right word. I lost the capitalism for each industry for Christians and conservatives. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I would, and I think that there's an opportunity here. This is not just a U.S. problem. Hate
Right.
to say it, but this type of censorship and suppression, it's taking place everywhere, right? So, yes, there are, approximately 100 million Americans. That's roughly half the adult population here in the United States. In the White House, we would always say that there are no blue states, there are only blue cities. And that's true, but even more so, we've had conversations with different organizations and individuals internationally. They need these same types of services. GiveSendGo, Freedom Square aren't just applicable here in the United States. And that's the beauty. I mean, GiveSendGo made a perfect example by helping the truckers up in Canada. So, in an 8 billion person world, I think that there is more than enough opportunity, especially if, we're really trying to build out the best solutions out there.
Agreed. Even our name is taken from the Eastern Bloc countries. When the wall fell, you started to see these town squares are now labeled Freedom Square. And that's kind of what we wanted to bring to the forefront. This is where freedom lives. It says behind me, freedom lives here, and we ring true to that. And that's why we've built what we've built, because you're right, it is happening around the world, and we want to be that portal for people to gather and connect and start to unite and vote with their dollars. That's really what it boils down to. So yes, it can be an international thing, and I applaud what GiveSendGo did for the truckers convoy in Canada. I mean, Justin Trudeau, when I remember a press conference he had once you guys went hot with everything, he didn't know what to do. It's like, oh, who's this GiveSendGo company and what are they doing? We would talk to some of the truckers down here in the States that rallied for a while, and they knew exactly who you guys were. So I applaud you. I mean, that's what it's about: getting your name out there and being out front. Stop being in the shadows and get out front. So great job, everybody.
We are actually in 86 countries around the world. You can fundraise on GiveSendGo. So we do see, especially during COVID, a bunch of countries all over the world where some mandates and things were happening, where people wanted a voice to speak out, and there wasn't a platform, and GiveSendGo was available to them. One of the things that is really encouraging to me is that a lot of times we can feel like, are there enough people, right? That is the question. Are there enough people? But I can tell you 100% when campaigns come on GiveSendGo and there's something that pulls at the heart of people because something unfair is happening, we see thousands and thousands and thousands of donations coming in of people going, I might not be as vocal as I should be, but I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to support this. And people come out of the woodwork to say, I am going to support this cause. From the rancher down in Texas, George Kelly, who's allegedly shot somebody crossing, you just see people coming saying, I'm going to stand behind you. There are plenty of people that want to stand behind a cause. But I think one of the reasons Give, Send, Go has been successful, well, number one, it's because I believe it's a God endeavor. But number two, I really do believe that we've been vocal about that. I feel like we don't hide the truth and the freedom that we have found. And in that, we're being able to pass that on to people, and it's refreshing to people. We have a whole prayer team that calls every campaign that gets started on Give, Send, Go and says, hey, I've just read your campaign. I see you're going through cancer. Can I pray with you? Right on the phone, big tap, calling a person individually and praying with them. And people that are like, I'm an atheist, are going, I just can't believe someone cared enough about me to call me from this big platform that I just chose because of freedom, that you would care enough to ask me how I'm doing. And because we're so vocal, and each one of you are as well, because you're so vocal about what motivates you, I think that's what's going to cause even people who might not align 100% with us to come to our side, because we're going to be people of character and people of conviction and people who stand by, when I open my mouth, I'm speaking the truth. And that's what I want people to know about our platforms, that they can trust us. And that's going to draw people. And there's plenty of people that are just on the fence that don't even know there's a battle going on. I have people go, oh, I didn't even know GoFundMe takes down campaigns, or I didn't know these other AWS did that, or whatever, right? They don't know. There are plenty of people that just need to hear truth with conviction, and we won't have a problem finding people that are searching for that. They're searching for it.
So Heather, when I met you a year ago, I believe it was, you had a great comment, and we kind of touched on this already, but you said that instead of being an alternative to big tech, that we are creating good tech, or something along those lines. So you've kind of you mentioned the replacement tech, or the replacement economy, but could you expound a little bit more on the good tech concept?
Sure. It actually came on the opposite side, because everybody was saying big tech, and I said, and we all say big tech is bad. That's just kind of the
and I use the big bad tech.
It's that big tech is related to bad things. Like if you say big tech, it's almost in a negative connotation. This big tech censoring, big tech's this. And I was like, we need to stop that, because Give, Send, Go is going to be big tech. Freedom Square and Liberation and Cross Current we want to be big tech. And there's nothing wrong. I don't want big tech to be a bad word. Let's just label it out how it is. There's bad tech. Those who censor people and get their ideological panties in a bind when something doesn't line up with what they think. And then there's big tech, which is good tech, because it's people who stand for truth and with conviction, like I said before. And so I really think that let's all strive to be big tech. Let's change big tech to not being a bad name, that it's actually synonymous with people like us that are doing things the right way. And let's label those other companies bad tech. I think big tech could be synonymous with good tech. Big tech could be synonymous with good tech if the good platforms are there. I just don't want to be like, oh, we can't call ourselves big tech because it's a bad word. I want to take that word back. I want our companies to take that word back, that people go, oh no, I love big tech. They're people who give us freedom. That's what I want big tech to be labeled.
Yeah, and there's a whole conversation there about how words are being usurped in the negative way, and changing the definitions of words, and conversion therapy, which is the exact opposite of what they say it is. But I believe that God has called us, both my wife and I with Cross Current, but each of you guys as well, to create. He calls all of us to create. My dad was a pastor for his entire career, and now has a art business that he calls Create. That he says that God has has called each of us to create. It is part of being made in the image of God, that we are called to create. And so, again, I applaud each of you on what you are doing in creating good big tech, and so honored to be with fighting alongside each of you. Real quick, just because this is, for eventually for investors, or ultimately for investors, what is what's the benefit to being to getting on board as an investor in something like a Freedom Square, a Give, Send, Go, a Liberation, Crosscurrent? Do you guys have some words, not to speak to me, but to possible investors that are watching this?
Well, I think it grows from where you spend your dollars. Locally in the marketplace, if you're buying shoes, or buying a candy bar, or whatever it may be where you do your shopping at, I think it's the same with our businesses. We're building a place of good tech, as Heather would say. Not the big bad tech, but the big good tech. And I believe that's what it is. We're building a home, a portal, a place for people to connect, unite, and get facts and information without the media bias. We're giving voices a place to call home with our podcasters. Normally, podcasters you probably wouldn't even have heard of. We're putting them on Freedom Square because we want them to be next to the Dan Bonginos. We want them to be next to the Joe Rogans of the world, because they've got something to say. And that's what freedom's all about. That's the very First Amendment right there, freedom of speech. And we want to make sure that that's there. If I'm talking to an investor right now, it's all about freedom, and it's their choice to invest in our companies, their choice not to. But if they want to build a parallel economy that's going to intersect, I believe that we're a good spot for us to do that at Freedom Square, and at Give, Send, Go, and at Liberation, and at Crosscurrent. I mean, these are great companies that just need that shove up the hill to get to the top, and then let things happen. That's really all it takes. It takes that belief system, and all four of us on this call, we get it, we understand it. And people watching this, I would applaud you for investing in any of these companies, because they're doing good, and that's what we need more in this world, is good.
Well, and what I would add on to that is, over 80 of the 100 richest individuals here in the United States are actually conservative leaning, right? How many people out there today, they look around and they complain about what is going on in society, right? There are so many people that are just yelling at their computers, yelling at the TV, can't believe this is happening, can't believe I am doing this, but then they go invest in a liberal agenda, or they go give their money to a bad tech company, right? So, I think that while it's important spending your dollars, if there's an investor out there, I think it's also important for them to invest their dollars with like-minded companies, right? It's a very easy way to solve all of this, right? I think that people will traditionally just complain, but instead put your money where your mouth is, right? Let's all fight this together. And I think one of the unique benefits about being in this space is the fact that we have great platforms like this, where we can all come together and raise everyone else up together. It is kind of creating this tidal wave of momentum, and we all get a ride on it together side by side. Whereas if you're just a regular small business, not kind of in this parallel space, you're fighting for air, you're fighting for eyeballs and attention. But by being in this space, there's a lot of benefits to it, and I think everyone will ultimately succeed as long as they're putting a great product out there.
Yeah, I think that as an investor, what you're looking for is a return on investment. And I can say, like we were just talking about, the amount of people that I'm reading a book right now called The Blue Ocean Strategy, and it's talking about taking, not just trying to compete in the same old pool, but like launching out into something different. I can tell you that this is something different. It's not going away. We're not going away. We're getting better and stronger. And now's the time to invest, because we're just getting bigger. People, as freedoms are taken away, people are going to start fighting for those freedoms and standing up, because that's when people start waking up. And so now's the time to get in and start investing, because these are the platforms that are going to be the future. They are going to be, people want platforms that give them a voice. And so if you're looking for a return on your investment, come in early, get in while we're building this thing that is going to really change the dynamic culture of the world, as people have options and alternatives. I think it's, if I were investing in something, right now, obviously all my eggs are in Give, Send, Go, but I would be looking, and I continue to, and we invest in other people just simply by also having those conversations and supporting them and being on Freedom Square and talking with Liberation about services and, all the things. That's what we do. But if you are an investor with money saying, I want to put my money somewhere, this would be a no-brainer to invest in something like Cross Current that says, listen, I want to be, there's not an Audible out there that I know of. There's like a Kindle type situation. I am on my Kindle all the time. I would love to have somewhere where I can go get books. It is going to be happening. It is going to be happening. Don't wait. Get in now. These are my final wise words for all you investors out there.
Well, I appreciate that, Heather. And we are butting up against the hour here. And I just want to thank each of you so much again for being willing to be on this call and to share your advice and expertise and the vision and passion that you have in creating what you have created, as well as the reason that you are creating it for freedom, so that conservatives, Christians have this opportunity is amazing, and I hope that I can count myself among you as an equal, but or at least somewhere in the same stratosphere. But again, I thank you so much for being willing to be on. And any closing thoughts?
I'll just say this, if you're talking to an investor and you were to ask them, would they want to participate in the early Silicon Valley days, I can almost guarantee you they'll all say yes at a heartbeat. Wish I could go throw back more. I think that's what we're building right here. We're building, a new version, a morally sound version of Silicon Valley.
And I would just say to you, Clayton, continue the journey. It's not easy. There were years and years and years where Jacob and I we did everything. We didn't have a team of people. We did the marketing. We bootstrapped. We did it all. It was hard. Surround yourself with people that speak life into you, when that can help you get perspective when those hard days come and you just want to throw in the towel. You are in the same situation as us. So don't discount yourself, because we all have been there. We're not where we're done going yet. And so we're all in this middle of this journey of building something. And so just keep pressing on. That's what I would finish this with, because God has given you a dream, and I'm really excited to see what he's going to do with it.
Absolutely. I would say pray on it. God's got you. God's in this with us, and continue to pray, and it'll all. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, right? I mean, we can all agree on that. If this was easy, everybody would be doing it, but it's not easy. Anything worthwhile fighting for is not easy, and this is worth fighting for. So pray and know that God's with us.
Amen. All right. Thank you again. I greatly appreciate the time, and looking forward to continuing to use each of your services. And thank you for joining us in this battle.